Hey guys, this is Mrs. Harbin, and I'm here with Algebra 1, Lesson 1.6. Our biblical integration verse for the day is Isaiah 55:9, which says, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." Just a good reminder that God created the earth and everything in it. He created this system of mathematics and order and patterns, and while we can seek to understand a lot of it, we are dealing with an omniscient, all-powerful God whose ways and thoughts are high above anything we could ever truly and completely understand. Our objective for today is this. You, the student, will divide signed integers and rational numbers and apply the properties of real numbers. Now, just a quick reminder that an integer is a digit, negative or positive, and it's not going to be a fraction. So it's all of the whole numbers with their opposites. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then their opposites, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so forth and so on. Rational numbers are two numbers that can be written as a fraction, which includes all the integers plus all the numbers that are parts of integers, like 3/4, 5/6, etc. Remember that integers, when integers are written as rational numbers, like the integer 2, as a rational number is just 2 over 1. So keep that in mind. Let's go over some terminology for division. When we talk about division, a quotient is the answer to the division problem, and the dividend is the number being divided into equal parts by the divisor. So let's say that we write a good old-fashioned division problem here, and we want to divide 144 by 2. We've got three different parts. Right? The dividend is our large number here. It's the number that we're starting with. That's our dividend. It's being divided into equal parts by our divisor. Here's our divisor. And what we have here is our quotient. And what this says is basically I have 144 of something, 144 things. And I want to divide it into groups of 2 or 2 groups, either way. Let's say I divide it into 2 groups. I'm going to have 72 in each group. That's basically what a division problem is. It is the opposite of multiplication. While in multiplication we were combining groups, now we're separating into equal groups. Division is what we call the inverse operation of multiplication. What I just said. Multiplication combines into groups and division separates into groups. If the divisor and the dividend have like signs, then the quotient is positive. So in our example here, our dividend had a positive sign, our divisor had a positive sign, and therefore our quotient, 72, also had a positive sign. If we had two negative signs, negative 144 divided by negative 2, our quotient would be still positive 72 because our divisor and dividend have like signs. They're both negative. If the divisor and dividend have unlike signs, the quotient is negative. So let's do a positive 144 divided by a negative 2. We've got unlike signs here. So our quotient will be negative with unlike signs. Let's take a look at an example. Positive 14 divided by 2. Hopefully you can answer this without too much work and get to positive 7. Negative 72 and positive 9. We've got unlike signs here, negative and a positive. It's a positive 9, which means our answer will be negative. Our quotient will be negative. And if you said negative 8, good job. 105 divided by negative 21. Again, we have unlike signs. With unlike signs, our quotient is negative. Go ahead and divide that one on your own and then check your answer. Negative 5. Great job. Here we have negative 864 and negative 36. Because they have the same sign, our quotient will be positive. Do that one on your own and you should end up with 24. Now when we talk about dividing with 0, 0 divided by a non-zero number is equal to 0. 0 divided by non-zero numbers equal to 0. I have 0 of something and I try to divide it into groups of 5. I can't. I will have 0 in each group because I had 0 to begin with. So 0 divided by a non-zero number is equal to 0. Division by 0 is undefined. If I have 5 and I try to divide it into 0 groups, that's impossible. It's undefined. Because if I have 5, I at least have one group. I can't have 0 groups. And you might say, well, if I have 5 Oreos and I eat them all, now I have 0 groups. But then you don't have 5 Oreos in your hand anymore. So trying to divide by 0 is undefined or impossible. We use undefined in math, and this is the symbol we use to represent undefined. Keep in mind that a rational number is like a division problem. So 5 over 0 is the same thing as 5 divided by 0. So in a fraction or rational number, you can't have 0 on the bottom. It is undefined. Reciprocals, or what we call multiplicative inverses, are two numbers whose product is 1. The reciprocal of 1/2, flip our fraction here. The reciprocal is 2 over 1. And if I were to multiply those, I would get 1. The reciprocal of 3/4 is, flip our fraction here, 4/3. And if I were to multiply those, I would also get 1. So inverses is just multiplicative inverse, flipping that fraction over. Let's take a look at some properties of multiplication. The multiplicative inverse property says that the product of a number and its reciprocal is 1, what we just talked about. So let's take 1/2, multiply it by its reciprocal, 2 over 1. When we multiply fractions, we go straight across. So 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. And when we simplify that, that simplifies down to 1. So that is one proof of the multiplicative inverse property. Here it is written with letters instead of numbers. For some of you, that might be more helpful. A second property of multiplication, or of division, division is just defined as multiplication by the reciprocal. So, for example, 3 divided by 2 is the same thing as 3 times the reciprocal of 2, 1/2. So if you're not sure how to divide 3 by 2, but you know how to do 3 times 1/2, then you can find your answer that way. This is really helpful for fractions. When we have 3/4 divided by, let's say, 7/8. And we don't know our 3/4 and 7/8 times tables, and that can be difficult to divide. But we know that division is just multiplying by the inverse. So I'm going to multiply by the inverse of 7/8. Flip our fraction here. Multiply straight across. 24/28, which I can then simplify. So using inverses and multiplication is a great way to solve division problems. You can do it with any number. We typically only do it with fractions, but you could do it with any number if you wanted to. What if I wanted to take 144 divided by 2? Well, I could just multiply by the inverse. 144 times 1/2. And both times I'm going to get 72. So if you're not sure how to divide, just multiply by the inverse. Take a look at this example. We have 4/5 divided by 9/10. Not sure how to do that? Well, multiply by the inverse. 4/5 times 10/9. We can simplify before we multiply. Looking at our cross digits here, 5 and 10 have a common factor. We can simplify both of those and then multiply to get 8 over 9. Okay, this one may look complicated, but it's really just 2/3 divided by 4. If you're not sure how to do that, remember you can just multiply by the inverse. 2/3 times 1/4. Go ahead and try that one on your own and see what you get. Using some simplification before we multiply, we get 1/6. If you multiplied first, you would have gotten 2/12, which you then could have simplified to 1/6 because they have a common factor of 2. We're going to divide 1.26 by 0.3. Now this is not looking at fractions and inverses. We don't know our 0.3 facts, so what we can do is move our decimal one place here. Whatever we do to the outside, we've got to do to the inside. We've got to keep things balanced. And that will make our new division problem 12.6 divided by 3. We do know our 3 times tables, so that should be a little bit easier to solve. Let's go ahead and try to solve this one on our own before we get to the end. 3 goes into 12 4 times. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Our decimal place stays in the same spot up here in our quotient, so we're just going to move that up there. 3 goes into 6 2 times. Divide, multiply, subtract. Nothing to bring down, so our final answer is 4.2. 4.2. So today and by now, you can check yourself and see if you know how to do these things. We practiced dividing signed integers. We talked about how to divide rational numbers using the multiplicative inverses, and we applied the properties of real numbers in multiplication and division problems. If you have any questions, be sure to ask me whenever you see me next.